Okay, it's time now, so we can start the session. So thank you everyone who have joined on time, and this is our third session, third online session. We have been organizing various uh, webinars to help people, and NDCHRC has been actively helping people in healthcare field for last 4 years. So today we have Dr. Gurpreet Kaur. She is an expert physiotherapist, and she has been working with children and adults as well. Uh, so I would pass on now to Gurpreet. She has made a very good presentation, so she is going to walk us through the presentation. We have received queries from more than 40 people, and there are 107 people who have registered for this session today. So we have a big audience. So thank you all for your interest. We would try to include as many as questions possible today. In case your questions are not answered, we will separately reach out to you, or you can send us a mail again on ndchrc@gmail.com, and we would individually try to help you as much as possible in your respective queries. Okay, so Gurpreet, over to you. You can start the session. Your presentation is on.
Thank you so much, sir. I am really glad to rejoin sir and Vidisha ma'am after a long gap, and they really doing very good initiative of NDCHRC. So let's start with today's topic: motor delay and cerebral palsy. So if anyone wants to give an answer, what do you think we'll be talking about? Or give some explanation or some definition or whatever you know about motor delay or cerebral palsy. As it is a caregiver's perspective, so I would like to know what you all think about it. You can put up in the chat box. Cerebral palsy is a brain disease. Am I audible and visible to all?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So there was one answer that it is a brain disease. That is correct. Anyone else who wants to answer? Okay, then, or maybe we start with a child with CP have developmental delay. They suffered brain damage during or right after the birth. Very good. There is no development in the motor skills or delayed development in motor skills. Very good. Motor delays, delayed response of gross and fine motor skills in children. Okay. Are these person answering really parents or therapists? Because your answers are so perfect. I think I need not to explain now. It's the failure to meet the milestones. Very good. So perfect. You have a very right concept. So please next slide. So first of all, before going to cerebral palsy, we should know what are the domains of development or the categorization which we say as to in what what different perspectives a child grows, or the human behavior, or the humans grow and develop. So first is the the physical growth. Physical, the gross motor and the fine motor, the movement, the postures we build up. The other domain is the cognitive. For child, the cognitive part is about the play skills, or how the brain or the intellect develops. The third domain, the third domain is social and emotional. How you interact with your peers, how you interact with your family members, how you interact
Ma'am, your mic is mute. We can't hear you.
so sorry. Now can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So where did you last hear? Or nothing?
You can just start on the same slide again, Gurpreet.
Okay, so I was explaining the four domains of development. That first is the physical, which you can all understand, the motor, the gross motor, like the child rolls, crawls, stand ups, sits, learns to sit down, and then stand up, crawling. These are the motor milestones or the motor development. Next is the cognitive and as well as the play skills, the intellectual development of a person, intellectual development of a child. The third milestone or the third domain of development is social and emotional. That is how one interacts in the society, how one interacts with the family members, how you respond to any situation, whether happiness, anger, or crying or anything else. And the fourth one is communication, the language, how you express, how you how you express the language, and how what you intercept of whatever you are hearing. So these are the four basic domains of development. Next slide, sir. These two slides, they represent various milestones in all of these domains. Please unmute. Sorry, please mute yourself. I'll request the participants. So these are the like the first chart shows about the fine motor skills which develop, like the child in first 2 to 4 months tries to touch or explore and feel whatever is around him. He tries to explore his toys. Next, in 4 to 6 months he tries to hold. Then in 7 months he tries to play with them and interpret the hand. The bimanual function is developing. Then the around about 10 months, the fine motor skill, more deeper fine motor skills are developing, like the pincer grips. The next slide, sir. Yes. And after about a like 1.5 year child starts to scribble down and can join some blocks, can do some stacking. And the last picture you see, like 2 to 3 year child can start drawing these kind of figures. First he does with single line, then a circle, then these cross or a plus sign. So this is the way the brain develops. Whatever we are doing as adults is we can, it is very difficult in a child. It develops very slowly. Similarly, the other chart is the gross motor skills. Like the same child should hold his neck, control over his upper girdle, and he pushes up on the arm, lifts and hold the head up. Next, the 6 month child uses the held hands to start to sit with support. A 6 month child. The supported sitting, although starts around about 3.5 months to 4 months, but definitely up to 6 to 7 months, the child will attain independent sitting. And 6.5 to 7 months, the child will play easily, independently in sitting. He can go for dynamic sitting. Why I am emphasizing the fine motor and gross motor and explaining them all, because we'll have all the rehabilitation tips and techniques on these milestones, these postures only. So you need to understand them. Fine. Like the 9 month child sits and reaches for the toys. So he is a quite dynamic sitting, independent sitting, and he can now go for all the transitions like move from tummy to back into sitting. He can lie down, get up, and do his work, and again go to crawl position or the quadruped, and then get down to sitting. And definitely he starts to have a movement. So there are two things: posture and movement. And movement is what in human beings or the animals we have a high cognitive function which helps us to locomote. So this is the locomotor function which starts developing at 9 months when the child starts to creep or crawl, and up at about 10 to 11 months he starts to cruise. Cruise means when a child holds the furniture or sofa or anything, gets up and takes steps with support. Okay, so that is cruising. And up till 10 months, so it is a range 10 to 14 months, variable with every child. The 10 to 14 months the child starts to walk. The independent walking, the free walking or the free steps, the child takes about 13 to 14 months of age. And 15 months, like it is written, walks independently, seldom falls, and squats to pick up the toy. That means every time you see, first there is an attainment of a static posture, then there is a transition to independent. First there is a static posture with support, then there is a static posture without support, and then there is a shift from posture to another posture, which in our terms we say it is transition. And then the movement perception or the locomotor function comes into play when there is change of position. So if you all understand this concept, that how a baby grows or how the nature has planned to develop a child, so we can think of these points and do rehabilitation of our children at home also. Because you all know in this COVID time, you cannot have OPD direct contact in-hand sessions. So if you have these concepts and the further concepts we'll talk in the PPT ahead. So these might help you to do what we do in hand with your children. Okay, next slide, sir. So these are the social and emotional and the language milestones. This you can go through I won't take much time because in today's topic we are mainly concentrating on the motor or the physical growth part. Okay. So in the social adaptive milestones, next. So now we are coming to what is the delay. When an infant does not reach a milestone at the expected time. So it can be a delay in cognitive domain. It can be a delay in motor domain. It can be a delay in emotional or social, and it can be a domain in language. So in the questions also which you have filled in the registration forms and some coming here, like people are asking about some autism or other disorders. So these are basically divided upon the type of or the domain of the milestones or the development which is affected. So cerebral palsy is one of the causes, one of the major causes of motor delay. That means there are different problems or different domains definitely are affected in cerebral palsy, but definitely the motor domain is predominantly affected. Other causes of motor delay can be prematurity, low birth weight, cerebral palsy, developmental coordination disorder, Aina bifida, muscular dystrophy or other myopathies with some inborn error of metabolism, spinal muscular atrophy, or other rare genetic disorders with multi-system involvement. So see, like I have written multi-system involvement. That means different domains can be there, but when we are concentrating on motor delay, so uh, cerebral palsy is one of the major cause of motor delays. Next slide, sir. So what is cerebral palsy? Cerebral word means the brain or the two halves of the brain. Palsy means paralysis. Like here it is written, due to the brain injury, there is a resultant disorder of movement. Okay. Another important thing which I would like to say here is it is a static and non-progressive lesion. I would like to ask, is everybody able to understand the English, or do you want me to have some Hindi in between, or what language? Is it going fine?
Yeah, you can go on, Gurpreet. The individual concerns we can help later. Okay, let's go on with the majority now.
Okay. 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 So next is what is static and non-progressive lesion? Like you have multiple diseases, or which I have enlisted in the list in the last slide. So in this cerebral palsy, whatever happens to the brain due to any cause, in the further slide we'll go through different causes, but whatever lesion or injury to the brain happens, whether it is like people have written maybe due to some reasons in prenatal, antenatal, or postnatal period, but definitely whatever happened to the brain tissue will be static. That means you cannot do anything to the injury, whatever has happened. This might seem or this might seem bad to listen, but the positive point is that whatever has happened, that won't progress at all. That means so nothing bad, more bad or nothing worse will happen. Fine. So now we say ki there are so many problems. What are those? The poster are bad. What are those problems occurring? Those are always the consequences in this. This we have to understand what is in cerebral palsy. Whenever there are different areas controlling different functions in the brain, so whatever area has got an injury, that function will definitely be affected. But as we know that all the areas and all the functions are interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent. So definitely when one function is affected, the other functions might be hampered or impaired in any kind. So these are the consequences which we see, or which we have to deal in multi rehab, or we have to multi speciality. So it is a static and non-progressive lesion to the motor areas of the developing brain. Another point, it is the developing brain. The positive point for our rehabilitation point of view is that still the brain is developing. That means we do have a lot of chance of improvement, and leading to the problems in movement and posture. What I said already, that it predominantly has a physical disability factor. Next slide, sir. Next slide, sir. Okay. So its prevalence is 2 in 1000 live births, with the incidence rate increases with multiple pregnancies. Like male to female ratio is 1.5 to 1. So various causative or precipitating associated risk factors you all also might be knowing. I'll just enlist a few of them. Like somebody also wrote in the chat box, it is even either during or after the birth. So definitely there can be different risk factors like breech presentation, complicated labor or delivery, low APGAR score, or what people say is birth asphyxia, or the oxygen low oxygen supply to the brain, like low birth weight or prematurity, multiple births, as we see in the prevalence. There are some nervous system malformations, like there is defect or malformation in the brain areas or the brain structure, maternal bleeding, maternal hypothyroidism, the seizures, both either in the mother during delivery or in pregnancy, or in the baby, maybe during shortly after the birth or in the postnatal period. Or there can be brain hemorrhages or neonatal stroke, especially in middle cerebral artery. Next slide, sir. But the fact you have to remember is that it is non-contagious. That means it is not transmitted by touching or seeing or whatever. So these are all the myths, and it is not inherited at all. There can be some predilection, but definitely scientifically it is not inherited at all. So what are the early signs? Usually the diagnosis or the time taken to come to a diagnosis is when a child is about to reach 1.5 year or 2 years of age. But how do parents or the therapist, or if anyone in the society can come to know? So you should know these signs. Like if you see a 3 month child and he is not able to lift the head, he is pushing back the head, or he is stiffing up the limb, sorry, keeping hands fisted, and there is lack of arm movement. So there should come a red flag or a question mark, why this is not occurring in a child. Similarly, if you see a 6 month child, there is a rounded back, still there is no head control. Like in the picture, you can see there is difficult to bring out the arms forward. When you are trying to make a child come up to sit, his head is lagging back down. He is not able to take out or take up arms up and towards you, reaching you. So whatever I have discussed as the milestones, if the child is not being able to try for those milestones, so that becomes a question mark. But that always does not mean that the child is having cerebral palsy. There are many other reasons for the motor delay. There are many other reasons. Sometimes there is a normal development also, but there is a shift in change in when the child attains. One child will attain head control or independent sitting by 5 months, but the other child, if attains by 7 months. That does not mean that you start doing an MRI or CT scan or test for the cerebral palsy or ruling out other reasons for motor delay. So there is a variation. Okay, like a 9 month child uses one hand predominantly. Like a 9 month child, we said should use both the hands, should shift one toy from one hand to other. There is a midline presentation. So if that is not occurring, that means there is some question mark why it is not happening. Inability to straighten the back, difficulty in crawling, does not come to quadruped position, poor use of arms in sitting, un, uses one side of the body to move, like there is some asymmetry, using or tilting only one side, preferring of one side. This can be normal, but definitely as these symptoms or signs are seen in these specific cases of motor delay or cerebral palsy, so we can consider them as signs. 12-month child, difficulty getting up to stand because of stiff legs, pointed toes, sits with weight to one leg, strongly flexed or stiffly extended arms. So there is some kind of tightness or stiffness. Every time, those who know what the types or the tone of the muscles, so every time it is not that there is some kind of hypertonia only. The inability to do, and if you are unable to control whatever the mind is giving the information, so in those cases also there is some kind of stiffness or movement rigidity is there. So 15-month child unable to take steps independently, poor standing balance, falls frequently and walks on toes. So these are the early signs. As soon as you catch, you should go to contact the nearby pediatrician or a physical therapist or pediatric neurologist or an orthopedic surgeon. Any physician or a doctor you should contact and just have a check. Next slide, sir. So this is what I have told. You can contact who and how the diagnosis is made. It is he or she, whosoever is the physician or the therapist or the doctor, will take the clinical history, ask for the birth history, the antenatal and the postnatal part, go for the clinical full examination, manual examination, observation, everything. And there are various investigations which can be done, like ultrasonography of the child, but that is also only helpful up to a stage. They do through the anterior fontanelle. So when the stage is when or if the bones of the skull join, so the ultrasonic waves cannot go through. Up till then, the ultrasound is helpful, or any antenatal can be helpful. EEG and MRI. So, but the thing to remember is, once a child is diagnosed with CP, there is no need for repeated MRI scans, because in the definition we have gone through that it is a static and a non-progressive lesion. So you come to know which part of the brain has been affected. No other change will happen. The lesion will remain same forever. But the point is, as it is a developing the immature brain, definitely we can, with the rehab or stimulations and all the treatments, we can at least engage the newer neurons which will be formulating or growing or developing or learning, or the new pathways to have a correct movement patterns and a correct posture patterns. So what are the types of cerebral palsy? Depending upon the regions affected in the brain, it can be if the cerebral cortex. So for the parents, you might have heard these names. So I'm just explaining in simple words. You don't have to go to so much depth, but definitely you should know as to what basically is happening in your child. So if the brain cerebrum, which we say the cortex, there are stiff muscles associated with damage to the developmental difference in the cerebral cortex. So if the cortex is affected, mostly there is spastic cerebral palsy. If the basal ganglia, there is dyskinesia. So we have other types in dyskinesia like athetoid and dystonic. In these in children with their basal ganglia, you might be seeing some involuntary, uncontrollable movements. Whenever a child is trying to respond or try to sit down or do anything, so there is a, you can say, a short circuit, or the the electrical supply which is coming from the brain is actually absurd. That is why there are involuntary or uncontrollable or abnormal movements coming up. The next is ataxic or the cerebellum. That means there are totally uncoordinated movements. Cerebellum is the area of our brain which controls our vestibular, or sorry, the equilibrium, the balance and the coordinated movement. That is why these ataxic children are usually imbalanced. And if the multiple areas of brain are affected, then it causes mixed type of CP. So this was if type of presentation according to the brain areas affected. Next classification you see is according to the area of the body which have been involved. Like monoplegia, if only one limb is involved, you can see the orange area here. Hemiplegia is the half body. That means the half trunk, one limb and one lower limb and one upper limb of the same slide. Hemiplegia. Hemi stands for half and plegia is for paralysis or weakness. Next, diplegia. So di means the lower limb. Here it is shown lower limb and written both arms and limbs. Common presentation in whatever we see around ourselves is both legs are maximum affected. Quadriplegia is when both the limbs, both the upper and both the lower limbs are affected along with the trunk. So quadri means four and plegia is same as paralysis. Next, so next are these. Some people had a question about different problems or different impairments which we have in these children, like mental impairment. One third of the CP children have mild mental impairment, whereas one third have a moderate or a severe mental retardation. One fourth to half of these children have learning problems. There are seizures in epilepsy. 30% also have seizures, whether at birth or in the neonatal period, that is the first 28 days, or even can have after this also. There is no standard time period when the seizure will come, or it can be in the form of a complete syndromic epilepsy and other associated symptoms like growth problems, too little weight gain, and abnormal shortness can be there. So these are a little bit of symptoms associated with the seizure syndrome. There are different, syndromes involving. Next are the feeding problems. There is difficulty in biting, chewing, swallowing. There is poor nutrition, and the risk of infection is greater in these children. Communication problems are there. They are not able to control their lips, jaws, tongue. There is trouble controlling breathing flow to make the voice work, or to initiate these larynx cords to evolve some voice. So there is difficulty talking or making himself understood. Definitely, when there is a communication problem, it is difficulty in both ways. Drooling, there is poor control of mouth and pharynx, as there is a motor delay. So even the oromotor muscles are also affected. So there is drooling or some feeding difficulties. which can cause severe skin irritation because the continuous drooling is there and poor digestion. These children have incontinence, faulty control over the muscles to keep the bladder control. And this means that overall, whatever region, whatever presentation, muscle presentation, what area is affected in the brain, those areas will be affected. Impaired vision or hearing is there, and abnormal sensation and perception. Like even for the normal sensations like touch or pain, they can be either exaggerated or they can be lessened too. Similarly, there is greater difficulty in identification of objects or the other higher cognitive sensations. Next slide, sir. So now comes everybody has only thinking about what is treatment or the rehab or the cure. So can CP be cured? No. The lesion in the brain can't be, but definitely the consequences can be minimized. First point in minimization is only the early detection. When you catch the early signs, and as soon as you catch the signs, you reach the nearest doctor or the physician to get your child checked. And as soon as the diagnosis is made, so the therapy or the treatment, whatever is required according to the situation, according to the age of this child, and according to the family's condition, if the treatment or the therapy starts, child's capability can be improved. But we have to remember one thing: no standard therapy is there that works for all. A one protocol or a one kind of even a therapy protocol or a treatment or medicine, surgery, whatever treatment is being given, you can't say that if it has helped one child, it will definitely help another child. Every CP child or every motor delay or any other developmental delay or any other patient is different, have their own differences, is unique in their own form, is different in their own form. So every patient, this I am saying because whatever I am saying in this today's presentation might not be applicable. Everything might not be applicable to all children. So it is just an idea I'm giving. You have to have a definite or a specific therapy protocol for your own child, which has to be discussed with your doctor, with your therapist. You can have an idea of the techniques here and go and check with your therapist, learn from them, and then carry on. Okay, next slide, sir. So early treatment gives better chances of learning. So what is our goal? Help the child to have a happy life. It should be a realistic goal. Okay, we can't make false promises that he can do this, he can do that, he can climb the mountain like anything. He can, if he is given the scope, if he has is been given the required resources. So there are multiple factors in even in a success of a normal person, or if we have to say if in a success of special need or a uniquely abled child. Everyone has his or her own unique abilities. It is the environment, it is the nurturing, it is the resources which we give, all depends upon these factors, variable factors, which can lead to a different kind of a future. So in these children also we keep these goals in the mind, and whatever the parents or the caregivers ask for, so we can help the child to have happy life, healthy growth to adulthood, and maximum independence in society. That means even after, or if there is still a residual disability, if there is some residual disability, still if he or she can move in the society independently, can independently do his or her activities, can hold himself independently. So our purpose is solved. It does not sometimes there are videos on Facebook or other portals you can see like somebody having some kind of disability achieving these goals easily doing very nice job. So our goal is that you have to be free in the society. Even WHO in their ICD classifications also they have changed the disease classification pattern. They say that you have to have a more orientation towards what the society participation and the limitations in the society. Okay, next slide, sir. So these are the general treatment therapies available like occupational therapy, physiotherapy, aquatic therapy, and the time period or the according to need what the child requires, medical treatment, the drugs, botulinum, baclofen, and the orthopedic surgeries as and when required. Next slide, sir. Next, specific needs of treatment according to age groups. Like for an infant, what is his requirement according to his age? This, keeping this in mind, we should have designed the treatment protocol. Like an infant needs sensory motor stimulation, a lot of sensory integration is required to bring upon a good, proper to bring a good motor outcome. So sensory motor stimulation until the proper diagnosis is made. Early childhood one that is 1.5 to 5 years. What is a primary? This is the stage of primary motor learning using loads of practice. So here play and free exploration is required, much more required in this stage. Here the gross motor skills are independent walking and adaptive seating. Adaptive seating means like if a child is sitting in a car, that is a different situation. A toilet seat adjustment is different. A chair at a home is different. So these are adaptive seating according to the variable time present. Fine motor goals are writing, using scissors, self-feeding. That means we have to have an idea or a goal or these kind of targets can be set up for this age group of children. So for middle childhood, that is 5 to 10 years old, the learning shifts or the focus shifts from primary motor to cognitive. Next slide, sir. That means now child should have some scholastic skills. He should be now walking or independent. More than walking, he should be independent in moving or to go to school or involved in some sports activities and address his own specific abilities. And what a therapy goal should be address specific physical disability. Now you should not cover up whole of the body here. In this middle childhood, there should be focus on a specific disability only. Next, in adolescence, focus is on independence in self-activities, cognitive training, and addressing specific disability in a goal-focused approach. In case of moderate to severe mental retardation in middle childhood and adolescence, focus remains on motor learning and stimulated learning by different modes. Next slide, sir. Now comes our important topic, home-based rehabilitation tips and techniques. So this is the way you should lift your child, like rolling to one side on the ground, then picking up as a one piece. We should remember, especially in these children with special needs or with specifically the motor component affected, you should not be taking the child as one limb is hanging, head is going one side. So they should be picked up or carried in a one log or a one piece. This will definitely help in not stimulating their vestibular or other system, not disorientating, and will not irritating them. Next slide, sir. So when you have to, if you have to lift and then carry, you can carry either by curling up or taking it on a hip, like the old Indian ladies used to carry their children by having a lot of matkas on their head, and they used to keep the baby like this on the side of their hip. So this is a very good method, and also even it help in maintaining the proper lower limb orientation also. Also, you can carry in like on tummy position in your hand as an aeroplane position, or by uh, taking the child in your hand in a, when the child is facing away from you. Next slide, sir. These are various things you can do for the tummy time in newborns. This many of you might be doing, like you can put the baby in your lap and then soothe, and if you are like facing it on your chest, so you should make an eye to eye contact. Are you all able to see me? You
Yes,
can
we
make
are.
an eye to eye contact and then talk to the child and keep it on your chest and then go for tummy turning. So these are the variations between we can use in tummy time. Next slide, sir. So these are the different positions which we say on prone lying or in the lying on tummy, which you can practice at your home for your kids. These will help in strengthening your child's back, gaining more neck control. Like we had seen in early signs, the child if is unable to hold his neck upright. So this is the basic milestone which we have to cover if he has to go for independent sitting and standing. In this way, we can make a towel roll underneath here and keep it down. Then take his limbs forward and ask him to reach for any fascinating or an interesting toy. Bring his shoulders and bring his elbows below his shoulders. All these are preparations for the further milestones. Next slide, sir. Like you can see, if the child has to be left out on tummy on a bed, so he should not be done without any pillows. He should be properly padded. Next slide, sir. Similarly, if the child has to be lying upright, like on back, facing towards the ceiling, then also proper pillow positions below the knees, below the head and neck, sideways. He should be not left like this only. Next, next slide, sir. So when you are in the same position, lying on the back, you can do different activities like turning, rolling, or you can place it in side lying and then have a toy here and ask the child to turn so he can come from sideline to supine or like on tummy, or the green lines we are seeing are the rolls, towel rolls are the lines of the motions which we can move. These frames are actually, these are the boards, balance boards. There are movable boards. Next, sideline position should be also with proper pillow positioning between there should be a pillow behind the child and between the legs. The legs should be bent like this, not left. So this is a more comfortable position. Next slide, sir. that these photographs you see, there is a transition from supported sitting to independent sitting, and the last photograph you see, the child is able to sit independently and can weight shift on both of the hips and then go for reaching. These all are simple activities and positions which you can easily give your child according to their functioning level and according to their age group. Next slide, sir. You can see, just see the position, your position and the child position. There are very good number of variabilities which you can do, like side sitting. This will help in when you do turning in this and bring your child's both hands in side sitting to one of the sides. This will help in preparing to go to quadruped and then for crawling. So this is kind of a preparing the child for next transition. So when you have to next, if you have to make your child sit, if he is having a greater disability and is not able to sit independently himself, so see the where pillows and sandbags can be placed when you are making him sit in a chair. Similar kind of positioning can be made in wheelchair also, to make them comfortable according to, and also to prevent any pressure sores or side limitations. Because if child like tilting one side, so he'll have a contracture or shortening on one side and then elongation. These kind of improper sitting or improper positioning actually are the bad consequences. The brain lesion is not that much, but our positioning and handling is actually, or bad treatment or delay in some kind of diagnosis. These are actually causing more consequences or worse consequences. So next, you can see down there's a picture when the child is rolling or sitting and reaching for a toy in front. This is he sitting on a bolster. At home, you can use a cylindrical pillow you have on divan like this. So you can use these things at your home only to do these exercises. Next slide, sir. So same on the roll and on the cylindrical pillow or a bolster or a ball, you can do these kind of movements. These will help to strengthen his trunk, his upper back, and there is weight shifting in the hands. So now the child is getting prepared for crawling and dynamic activity. Next slide, sir. So these are the step-by-step next milestones which we are coming, like the child now comes to quadruped before crawling. Next, before standing, he has to go to supported kneeling. He can use any furniture, a small chair even to attain this position. Every time you don't need to buy a ball for this. You can use anything at your home to attain this position. Next is half kneeling. You just have to see how you or the, like here it is a therapist or the parent can sit behind and in front or in sideways to help the child. Now this is cruising to supported standing. Now see how the parent is, when the child is on the bolster, he is controlling the legs and the pelvis, then helping the child to stand. And finally, only in the support, last picture, the support is only on the elbows. The child is standing by himself completely. Next slide, sir. These are also different or the variable positions which the child can go for independent. First, the independent standing, like with support of a wall or a table between the two chairs, and then this is training for the dynamic activities, like we are changing the base of support or giving the perturbations, disturbances, so that he tries to gain or learn how to balance himself. Next slide, sir. Next is teaching stepping. Last slide, sir. Previous slide. Previous slide, sir. Next.
This is the one.
No, it's the picture, sir. Previous slide.
Just
Stepping.
1 second. Yeah.
This one. You can see here how
Sorry.
stepping on first a small height. Okay, no problem. I'll just explain.
Yeah, it's
This
there
is
now.
on how with different heights you can teach your child stepping and marching and supporting their hips, supporting their pelvis on your lap, on across your legs. So all these things, in fact, even if you don't have a cylindrical pillow, which we had discussed in the last pictures, so you can do all these movements across your thigh, across your lap also. Next slide, sir. So this is putting an AFO, hold the child's knee and foot bent up. You should keenly observe that whether it is completely fitting, there is no pain, there is no torsion, or there is no skin fold. You have to nicely fit in the AFO or other braces, whatever the child is having. And last, the cleaning, the pressure points, you all should have keep on observing and checking for the child. These are also the good positions, and the cross position we have is like W sitting. We should definitely avoid W sitting with the child. This is not at all good for his posture and movement development. Next slide, sir. So this is a very important topic, play. What play is actually, this is the main point or the main substance with how the child learns. The main activity or the main work of a childhood life is to play. So this is a basic area which can have which can give all type of learning to the child, whether it is motor or cognitive. In a play form, you can make the child learn everything. So deciding what kind of toys, actually this play topic in itself is a huge topic, and the further topics which will be coming are in themselves are a huge and a single different topic, a whole lot of things to discuss in them. So just a few points which I am putting here, like for selecting the toys and how you can bring them to the child. Bring the toys within your child's easy reach. You should give a target which is not that much difficult, because if the child loses his or her motivation, he won't do. So you have to make the reach that much that it is just one step ahead of child's reach. Not too difficult and not too easy. Make sure the toys are not too heavy to hold or lift. Choose the toys which are exciting but not too frightening. Like a loud sound may also irritate the child or may take some time to be accepted. Show your child how a new toy works and guide their hands, and let them explore. Definitely a child feels and then explores himself. The children with special need, the only problem is there that there is some delay in how they explore, or they do not know the way to explore or play themselves. So you just have to guide them and be with them at all times, but definitely always not just put in your guidance. Do let them initiate themselves. Show them how pleased you are and when they have been successful. Appreciation, reward giving definitely increases the motivation towards learning. Next slide, sir. Next, these things to be remembered. Listen to your child and watch what they are telling to you. Let your child know what they have understood. Give your child opportunities to listen and develop their attention. For example, playing with sound, singing songs with actions, looking at pictures together, telling stories. Like they should not seem that somebody big is there, elder is there, and they have their own thought process. Do not impose your thought process. Let the children initiate, they become proactive so that they can eventually appreciate whatever good is happening. Use your face and hands to express yourself as you talk to your child. Repeat your child's speech back to them and gradually add to the ideas. This will definitely help in language development, the communication skills. Make your child aware of your pleasure in their attempts to do and say things even if they are not always correct. Help your child to feel successful, however they get. Thank you. Next slide. Next, a query on this feeding. So, for feeding, these are the 6 main points which we should take our concern, are of a concern. So first is environment and hygiene. There should be a proper environment, no distraction, so that the child can concentrate what he is eating, how he has to eat, what maneuvers or whatever he has to do. And the hygiene, definitely cleanliness must be there. So the type of no, this slide, sir. So the first picture here shows how 3 types of, or how you can introduce the food to your child. Next slide, sir. This one. Either it can be in completed blended purees or in a paste form, depending upon what your child can have. But definitely we should go to the proper cut form or a next stage also. Introduction is something, but progression should also be there. So 3 forms like finely minced, which is chopped up, and the big chopped pieces. This is the type of diet. Next is the positioning and the handling. From physiotherapist point of view, or what we are considering today, is the motor part. So in the motor part of the feeding, if we have to discuss positioning of the trunk, positioning of the head, overall posture of the child, and the caregiver who is feeding is very important in proper feeding of a child. Like in the first picture, you are seeing the positioning when the child is being breastfed. Next, if you have to make him sit in a chair, so that should also be arranged properly so that his trunk is erect and he is able to see what is coming to him, and also easily it goes down. This all helps in developing also our digestive and the alimentary muscles. Next is what type of utensils. When your child if tries to feed himself or herself, so what kind of utensils we can use? A rolled edge ball so that the food doesn't spills out easily. Plastic high wall plate. Next slide, sir. These are flexi cups, making the child easy to drink when he's not able, or if there is so much lack of control in the trunk muscles and he is not able to control his movement, so we can use these kind of flexi cups. Or if he is not able to hold the cup with one hand, you can use two handle cups or spoon. So, so initiator, when you have to introduce the spoon, you should have a big grip, like rubber tube or a wood piece can be attached, or these can be bought in the market where there are a broad grip and a handle there with a spoon. So these can help the child to go for an independent feeding. Next slide, sir. These are the position, handling positions, and introducing a responsible feed to the child. So this you see, I want to read all the instructions. You can just go through the pictures, see how the child is being held properly, and then the spoon or the glass or the cup is being introduced, and also see the position of the caregiver. Like if she has to be supported, have to she has to have a back supported and also the feet supported on some steps. Or if you are sitting on the floor, see how there the legs are aligned so that the child is held erectly and correctly. Next slide, sir. Next, very important is activities of daily living and communication. I have joined these topics because as and when the child learns the daily activities like bathing, dressing, cooking, eating, playing. So if like the first red cross is you, if you see in the pictures, the mother or the caregiver is bathing, giving a bath to a child, but she is in her own thoughts. Today I have to do this. Today I have to do this. I have to talk to this. She is definitely giving a bath to a child, but if you are not interacting, not giving eye to eye contact with your child, not communicating, you don't have to have a big sentences or speech prepared for your child. You are just, if you are just whatever you are doing, you are interacting and giving the same sentences, words, and telling what you are doing to your child. So he or she will feel ki, yes, I am connected with my parent or with my caregiver. So this connection actually brings upon a lot of learning. So you are now in the picture green mark. You see like the caregiver is, oh, you are washing her. I am washing you. You can take a soap. So you are talking and acting. So this way the child will learn more. Next slide, sir. So these are also the same steps when you can you are holding properly, positioning the child, making him or her also learn the steps, talking with them, completely explaining each and every also allowing them, like in the last line pictures you see, you are also allowing the children whatever they are doing. Even if something bad is happening, you are still motivating them, appreciating them, making them learn, correct them, but not reprimanding them. So this will help the child to learn more. Like this is the bathing which the child is learning. Next slide you will see the, next slide, sir. Now the mother or the caregiver is teaching and doing the dressing up, how to wear a shirt. You are complete explaining each and every step. Wear a shirt, wear a sleeve, tuck in button, step by step, wear one leg in the pajama, wear another leg. So you see in the last picture, the child is, whether he, even if he or she is lying, he's not able to get up erect and do the job completely, but still she is trying to do herself. So if you connect this way to a child, this will encourage the child to do more and better. Next slide, sir. Other ways of communication can be gestures. These are both ways. The child will also use these kind of communication measures like gestures, facial expressions, sounds, pointing, using eyes, and pictures. So you can also use, even you can show these videos, will make him learn some expressions between your child only. Like one family knows, like we say these words to our child, so these respond or direct to these things. So you can have your own gestures, your own unique facial expressions, or you can introduce some pictures, show them picture. Okay, you need this. Okay, you can tell this. If you need something, you can point towards that. So these are different ways of also communication. Next slide, sir. Okay. So last the take home message is that all children have the potential to learn and develop new skills. Sometimes they can follow the usual sequence of steps, and sometimes they have to miss some steps out and find an alternative way to do the thing. So each child will learn and develop at own way. Sometimes your child may need help to practice skills or activities. It is important to encourage your child to learn to do things for themselves rather than being helped by you at all the time. So definitely every kid matters, and try to find out what your child has positive, and whatever he lacks we can compensate or teach in a better way and in an encouraging method. Next slide, sir. So this is last but not the least, definitely the caregivers, all of you parents of the special needs children, hats off to you. You should have something for yourself also. Take one day at a time. Don't burn out. Don't panic. Don't run. Try to get any help for yourself or for your child. Don't take burden of everything. Don't feel guilt at all. Be good to yourself. Have enough rest and eat properly. Make, because if you are not healthy from your body and mind, you cannot make your child healthy, and that goes for all of the children and all of parents and families. So learn about different available resources. Like I have used some pictures from very good websites available, standard available on the internet, pathways.org, CanChild, CDC. They have very good resources available of the for the normal development, atypical and typical development, where you can learn about your child and growth and the red flags. So you can avail for different resources available on net, and even sir is also making some CP guide, and he's also helping out a lot of children and parents in various ways, not in just children with special needs. They are also working in various fields. So you can come out to them. There are caregiver support groups. There are rehabs for the caregivers. Also, there are questionnaires. There are for whatever problems the caregivers also face. So we can sort out those also. So don't burn out and share your feeling with others. This is all I've got. Next. Thank you, sir.
So thank you, Gurpreet, and thank you all the participants. It's a very informative session. I know it's a big topic, and there are many things which we can share, and people would like to know more about it. So please keep tuned in. You're already connected on WhatsApp. Most of you are, and we will definitely share more information as we progress. Gurpreet is very kind and very knowledgeable person, so you can reach out to me for any further information you require or individual consultation you require from her. We will organize for that, and we would try to definitely help you as much as possible. NDCHRC is a non-profit charitable organization. We have founded this to help people and children, especially they are very close to our heart, and we would do whatever possible to help you. So stay connected. That's the message I want to share with everyone. And reach out to people, reach out to groups. That's the main message. You would certainly get help. Okay, and help wherever you can help. Please do that. Help as well. We are going to come up with more session next week. We are planning for a dental health care, and similarly we would also organize for eye care and other healthcare related webinars. So stay tuned, and thank you once again for joining this session. We are looking forward to working with you to help you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you
Yeah.
for the to all the participants for patiently hearing. And thank you, sir and ma'am, for giving me a chance to speak with you.
Sure.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much. Bye bye.
Bye bye.